Wel, prynawn da pob, croeso cynnysiad i chi gyd, croeso i'r cyfarfod Pwyllgor Safonau, Sir Conwy. Good afternoon, everybody. Very warm welcome to this meeting of the Conwy Standards Committee. My name is Clive Wolfendale, and I am chair of this particular body. It's good to see everybody here today. We have a full house from the committee and some welcome visitors, both in person and online. If you are listening to this live or subsequently, then thank you for your interest in our work. This meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live streaming fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available, and for those attending remotely, to choose your language of choice. For those wishing to speak in the chamber, please raise your hand. For those attending remotely, please use the raise hand function. We will alternate between speakers in the chamber and remote attendees. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat facility. Committee members who are attending remotely are required to leave their camera on throughout the debate and when voting in order to maintain the integrity of the decision-making process. If you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please put a message in the chat function so the Democratic Services Officer is aware and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in this meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other. That applies to members, officers, and anyone in the public gallery. Thank you. I'm sure you've all had the papers for today and have brought them with you either of the paper variety or on your device. Thank you to the team here for preparing the background papers and distributing those in support of the agenda. Before we move to the formal agenda, I think it'd be most appropriate to recognize that one of our longest serving members, Brenda Bignall, has been re-elected to the committee. It's been through the full committee procedure within the council. So pleased that you're still with us, Brenda, and thank you for your service over 4 years now or so. Must be, yeah. Thank you. So to the agenda today then. Are there any apologies for absence?
No apologies, Chair.
Thank you. So once again, thank you for your attendance. Are there any declarations of interest today? I remind members that they must declare the nature of their declared personal interests, whatever they may be. Jill, please.
Thank you. It's item 6.3. I'm declaring a personal interest. That's the item on the Ombudsman's findings, and it will be in relation to paragraph 3.16, relating to the Flintshire County Council, where I'm a member of their Standards Committee.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Cater online, please. Thank you.
Panada Gaderit. The item is 9 members registered of interest. There's a correction, an item for correction on my own register. So I know I'm not a member of the committee, but I thought I'd declare that. I probably won't be still attending for that item 9, but I need to declare it anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3 then, urgent matters. Are we aware of any urgent matters today, Sally? Matt? No, Gary, no. Thank you. Moving on then to item 4, the minutes of our meeting not too long ago, on the 14th of October, which are at pages 4 to 8 in your pack. Brenda, please.
The record shows that I wasn't there. I actually was. Maggie managed to give apologies and be so. I don't know. Well done, Maggie. So I've already spoken with Sally, who will correct the record.
Yes, I wasn't there.
Anybody else? With those amendments then, could I have a proposal that the minutes be adopted as a proper record? Thank you, Frank. Seconded. Jill. And all in favour, please. Any against? Thank you. Then that's a unanimous vote in support of the minutes with the personnel amendments identified. Thank you. Item 5 then is the forward work programme, which on page 9 of your pack. Anything further to say on this, Matt?
No, nothing further on that, Chair. I think that's includes everything that we're intending to take to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. In that case, could I have a proposer that, thank you, Frank, a seconder, Jill again, thank you. An approval, please, for the forward work programme. Any dissent? No, thank you. That's approved then. Moving on. Item 6A, the adjudication panel for Wales annual report 23 to 24. And this is a report which Matt will present. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So just briefly, this is the annual report for the adjudication panel for Wales for the year 23-24. There is a link within that report to the annual report, to the full annual report for members to hopefully have the opportunity to have a look at. So the APW have two main functions. The first is to form a tribunal or interim tribunal to consider referrals to it by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales, following an investigation by them into an allegation that a councillor's breached the Members' Code of Conduct. And the second is to consider an appeal by a councillor against the decision of a standards committee that they have breached the Code of Conduct. As I say, I've attached a link to the report. Section 3 of the report is the case summary section, so perhaps the part of the report of most interest to the committee. There are 4 cases referred to there that have been referred by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. There's the Newport City Council case, which related to a criminal offence and disrepute, therefore, under 6.1a of the code. And there was a disqualification for 9 months in respect of that. There's the St Harmon Community Council case, which was to do with misleading Audit Wales, and there was a disqualification for 15 months. There's Powys County Council. There were numerous breaches of the code in that matter, Chair, and there was an 18-month disqualification in respect of that. And finally, Mumbles Community Council, where the adjudication panel found that there was actually no breach of the code in that matter. The APW have also dealt with an interim tribunal that's referred to in the report, but we won't see the details of that until there's been a full hearing on the matter. There was also an appeal against a standards committee decision which was upheld, and there was also a request for an appeal where permission was refused on the basis that there were no reasonable grounds for appeal. So I think that just summarises what's been done during that year, Chair. Unless there are any questions, that's all I have on that report.
Thank you. Any questions, Matt, on the report? Observations? No. In that case, a proposal, please, that the contents be noted. Be shy. Thanks, Claire. Thank you. Seconder. Phil, thank you. Yes, indeed, we'll have a vote. Thank you, Matt. All in favour? Against? None. So item 6B then, the consultation by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales on its practice of not informing an accused member of a complaint against them until after it has been assessed. Background here is on pages 13 to 16 of your pack. And this is worthy of consideration. It's a long-standing and important issue, of which there are clearly arguments to be held both ways. We are invited to make some response to this. It's our choice whether we do so or not, but I'm suggesting this afternoon that we open this up for discussion and opinion, and then if there is an opportunity to provide a consensus or view or other view, then we may wish to do so. So there we are. I think the issue is clear enough, but if you have any questions as to what this refers to, then please ask, we can elucidate. So over to you, please, the members. Oh, Councillor Louise, have you got your machine on?
To clarify, this is together with the Welsh Government looking into the whole structure of town councils.
Perhaps it'd help. Shall I
Just
just
a bit of background.
shall I just
Yeah.
briefly give a
Right.
bit of background, Chair? This arose from the independent investigation that I've set that out in the report, but there was an independent investigation into the practices of the Public Services Ombudsman's Office in relation to code complaints, and that was originally because of allegations around the then team leader that they had posted political comments on a particular social media page. And so there was an independent investigation to look into whether or not the practices of that particular office were fair and impartial, and the outcome of that was that they were. But having said that, there were some recommendations and some lessons learned. One of the recommendations was that the Ombudsman should consider reverting back to a previous practice at what you might call the gatekeeper stage of the investigations process. So when there is a complaint made initially, there's the two-stage test that we all know about as a committee, whereby the Ombudsman looks at whether or not there appears on the evidence to be a potential breach of the code, and then considers whether or not in those circumstances it's in the public interest to have an investigation. So that's what I'm referring to as the gatekeeper stage. And the previous practice was that as soon as a complaint had been made to the Ombudsman, the accused member, if you like, the person who the complainant was making an accusation that there'd been a breach of the code against, would be informed at that stage, right at first. That changed. I can't remember exactly when that was, but quite some time ago now. That changed, whereby the accused member was only informed at the stage where that gatekeeper stage had been carried through. So that would happen. Either the Ombudsman would decide we're not going to investigate this, or we are. And at that stage, the accused member is informed that either we've had a complaint, we're not going to investigate for these reasons, or we are for these reasons. So the recommendation is to revert back to the previous practice where an accused member is informed when a complaint's actually received by the office in the first place. Now, in terms of the process, therefore, the Ombudsman's gone out to consult quite widely on that. I have, and again, I have put this in the report, I have circulated that consultation document with an explanation about it to the wider membership, all councillors and co-opted members of the council. And I have also sent that to clerks of all the town and community councils so that they can make sure that their membership knows about the issue and therefore respond and give their view on the consultation response. And I put the consultation date when that closes, which is the end of this month, 31st of January, so that all the relevant stakeholders that can respond to the consultation. But there's also a specific request that Standards Committee give a view, which is why this report's here today, as well as myself as monitoring officer. I've set out the reasons that the ombudsman give for the current practice, and essentially they're twofold. But the first is that primarily a lot of worry and concern arises when a member is informed that there's been a complaint against them for the breach of the code of conduct, and that is quite often unnecessary, because once that gatekeeper stage has passed, the decision is not to investigate, and therefore that means that there is a lot of unnecessary worry with the previous practice. That's the first reason given. By the way, I'll be clear, these are the reasons given by the ombudsman, and I'm relaying those. I'm not expressing a view. The second reason is essentially a resource issue, and also and that's twofold. The previous practice meant that there were pre-investigation discussions with the accused member, and that also often led to a tit for tat accusations between different people, and there was a lot of resource involved in trying to deal with those issues and get past that gatekeeper stage, which meant essentially that stage of the process took quite a long time. And I can say, because it's factual, that stage is much quicker now than it was previously. But the primary reason for the recommendation that the Ombudsman reviewed the practice is one of the just natural justice, I suppose, principles of fairness and transparency. So those really are the key considerations, I think, in terms of taking a view on which is better, because there are three questions that are set out that the committee's being asked, but really it's one question. It's, do you agree with the current practice, or do you prefer the previous practice, and why? It's just one question, really. And then secondly, are there any other comments that the committee wants to make in relation to it? So hopefully that helps.
That's very helpful, Matt. Yeah. So, Louise, with that additional explanation, you've got to back on your question.
Do I want to know, I suppose, in our heads as a councillor, when someone is making complaints against you? I'd want to know straight away.
Right. You can come back again, Louise, while you
Yeah,
think
I'm
about it further.
literally pondering.
There's a few hands up now, but so David, I think, was next online. David, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was under the impression when this investigation that was set up on the Ombudsman, the inquiry, that they agreed that all recommendations would be implemented. And that's what was said by the Ombudsman originally. So it does seem as though there's a bit of a backtrack here, that now they're saying, well, this recommendation that members are informed of a complaint straight away. This recommendation, it seems to be going to consultation rather than being implemented. So got some concerns over that. The other thing is, like Louise, I think, people do want to know, and the main thing is, under the rules of administrative law, is it legal? I mean, obviously a member would have to go to judicial review, really, on the way that the system operates, but is it legal, really? Because people do have a right to know. It's a natural justice, as Matt said, and the other thing, and people have a right to put their side of the case right from the start as well. So I think, it's much fairer that somebody does, like Louise said, she'd want to know, and a lot of people would, and so it would save them having to at a later stage give, it could, at that initial stage, they could actually give possibly a reasonable explanation, and maybe no sort of no case would go forward. So I'm very much in favour of people knowing, and it's a matter. I said it's a matter of natural justice, and they have the right to sort of know what the allegations are and to put their case. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Matt, I think you wanted to come back on a couple of points there.
Only on a point of clarity in terms of what Councillor David said about the Ombudsman saying that they took on board all the recommendations. That's right, they have, because the recommendation wasn't change the practice. The recommendation was to consider So the ombudsman's position on that is that this is part of them considering whether or not to revert to the practice by consulting on it and seeking views.
Thank you. So a few points in the room now. I think Liv is first, and then Jill, and then Maggie. Sori, diolch Matt am yr eglurhad i'r cefndir yr holl beth. Ond y cwestiwn sgynna i yw sydd, dwi'n gwybod bod chi di egluro be oedd yn offers ma'n dweud lly. Ond pam bod nhw wedi newid o un i'r llall o blaen, a pam rwan bod nhw yn gynghori, ydyn nhw yn ymgynghori am y reswm bod yna pressure iddyn nhw'n gynghori yn dyn nhw'n i'r llall lly. Ac dwi yn dieddol o weld lle mae David, cynghorydd David Carr yn dweud bod hefyd lle. A mae swn tyma trwy sbrysu yr unigolyn. Mae o edrach i mi yn llawer iawn mwy treloiw, ffordd mwy treloiw o wneud lle. Na, fel oedd o blaen, fatha grwad.
Yeah, Chair. So the reason that they changed was for the, I suppose, the matters that I've referred to, which is that essentially it was considered that there was a very time-consuming process. It often made members very anxious about something that may well be likely to not pass that initial gatekeeper stage, and therefore that anxiety and worry that was created would have been unnecessary, but also a resource issue. There was a lot more resource involved, both for the office and for the members and the complainant involved in terms of that initial gatekeeper stage. So it was better in terms of resources, and it made that initial stage quicker. So those were the reasons for the change of practice. And the reason for this consultation and reconsideration of the issue is because of a recommendation that has been made to the Ombudsman in respect of their practices. That an independent investigation that arose from a allegation that there might be bias or political bias to do with some Facebook comments of a former employee. There was an investigation into all that, some recommendations arising from it, and one of the recommendations was to consider going back to the original practice of informing an accused member right from the get-go.
Beth dwi'n gael yn aml yma ydy, chi'n neud i'r rheswm o'r adnoddau lly, ond trio chwilio am y balans ysgrifennu rhwng adnoddau a bod yn dreulio'w, hwnna dwi'n cael yn drachau.
I think, Chair, that is for members' views rather than for me. I think it's the comment's right. Essentially, the competing interests that you seem to have is fairness and transparency as against to resources, and also potentially unnecessary concern for accused members. I think those are the three key things to consider.
Okay, so it's Jill next, please, and then Maggie, and then Brendan.
Thank you, Chair. I support the recommendations of the independent investigation in that I think the individual member who's been accused should be notified at the outset. Whilst I can see that obviously it can create anxiety inevitably for that person, I think, as has been highlighted, it's really in the interests of natural justice that that person does know from the outset. I have a slightly differing view from Councillor Carr, who I understand also supports the fact that the person should be notified from the outset. That the slight difference in view there is that it's not to enable that person to start preparing their case or to start interviewing or talking to people. because my understanding from what's been explained to us is that once the ombudsman has looked into it, it may then be put to bed completely anyway. So I don't think it would be appropriate that the accused member should start gathering information, start talking to people anyway at that early stage. But the fact that they've had some accusations made against them, I think, as I've mentioned, that they should really be notified of it from the outset, just so that they're aware of it. And to me, that only seems fair and reasonable. The fact that there may be resource implications, I don't think that should be for us to concern ourselves with. To be honest, I think it's predominantly about in the interest of natural justice for the accused. Thank you.
Thank you. Maggie, please.
Thank you, Chair. I agree as well that I think the members should be informed at the outset if there's a complaint against them. I think in addition to points that have already been raised, it may be that if they're not told at that point and there's a delay, however short, they could make things worse for themselves, potentially, or there could be a conflict of interest that they would be able to highlight, make sure they've declared in that interim period, not so much preparing a defence, but simply being aware and being informed and being able to act appropriately.
Thank you. Brenda, next. I think you were next, and then so
Fine.
if you can just Brenda next, and then Councillor Cater.
Fine, thank you. I'm really agreeing.
And John wants to come in as well.
Oh, sorry. I'm really agreeing with the most recent speakers. I think this is a matter of natural justice. I know that if somebody was making a complaint about me, I would want to know. I would definitely want to know, just because it would be transparent. I understand that this decision for change won't have been taken lightly, and that the issue of resources will have loomed large, but I don't know enough, we don't know enough about the balance of the resourcing to comment on that. And in any case, I think the principle is quite an important one.
Thank you, Brenda. So clear consensus among those who've already spoken. If I may then, Councillor Chris, who's online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to speak, because I'm not a committee member, but I have just recently had a complaint against me that went to the PSOW, and it was ridiculous. It was about, part of it was about my facial expression at a public meeting held in my ward about a controversial planning application. And I must admit, I was very relieved that I didn't know that a complaint had been made against me at the early stages. I only knew about it when it had been dismissed, quite rightly, after the two, the initial stages had been executed by the relevant officer at the PSOW. So I must admit, I will be responding personally to this this engagement consultation, that it should remain, the system should remain as it is at present, because it would have made me very anxious if I'd known right at the beginning that an official complaint had been made after that public meeting. So yes, I think members of the Standards Committee should be aware that a lot of these complaints are actually quite ridiculous, and it is probably better for us elected members not to know about them until they're actually dismissed. Otherwise, you'd have that period of anxiety when building up to the decision being made. So I just would plead to the Standards Committee to just think of all those elected members. And I'm an experienced councillor, I'm quite robust, Chair, but there are plenty of councillors that come from very diverse backgrounds, and they've really had to be very brave standing for election, and than doing their work as a councillor in the public arena. So I think I would just like to put that opinion there this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor, for that perspective. It's interesting for sure. So we go next to John, please.
Thank you very much. The button here illuminated, so I seem to be going backwards in the running order, but I'm here now. I would take the view that I think it's very important to know. I would want to know at the outset if there was any allegation that was made against me. So at an early stage, I could go into defence mode thinking about it. If you leave it, and I understand that there is a resources argument on one side here, but in my view, the resources argument is outweighed by the interests of the person who an allegation is made against. If you leave it until the ombudsman has made a decision whether to go forwards with it or not, that suggests that considerable amount of work has been done already without the subject of the allegation being able to make any response at all. And if you were to take a parallel but similar example, if it was a criminal matter, then the police would speak to a suspect right at the start to hear their version of events. And I don't think this is, at least in my mind anyway, is any different to that. If there's an allegation, then the ombudsman should hear at least an initial response from the subject of the allegation. Oh, it's odd now.
Sorry, it's working now. Thank you, John. If I may, forgive me, but your observations on police practice in terms of informing suspects is equivocated in some cases. It's not as straightforward as that, although generally there is a right to know if a criminal complaint is made, but there are very clear considerations as to when that might not be appropriate or necessary. But we'll perhaps come back to that a little bit later on. Lots of people want to speak, and I'll desperately try and keep it in a good order here in terms of where you are. So please bear with me. So I think it was Councillor Gorongwe next, to the back of the room. Thank you.
Dear Chairman, I'm not a member of the committee. Just an observation, having been councillor now since 1979, which is a fair length of time, I've had numerous referrals to the Ombudsman about my dealings with individuals, all of them which have been dismissed, thankfully. But on the point of early notification, I think, yes, if an accusation has been made, I think that person being accused should know about it. But it does, I can understand the other point, though, when an accusation has been made and the length of time it then takes for the complaint to have arbitration, because that can cause a lot of stress on somebody who's not maybe as used to, facing being called to account. Because I know of one incident that the fellow councillor that was accused, not a town councillor, not a county court, a town councillor, has had an awful lot of stress waiting for the ombudsman's decision on whether they're going to pursue it or not. So there are two sides to that argument of letting the applicant know quickly, but then the main thing, and I think we should be pushing for, is early arbitration by the ombudsman. I know they say it's a resource issue, but the actual time of the length of time it takes can be very discomforting for somebody who's being complained against. The other point is that if they don't ask you for your version in a timely manner, and they come back to you maybe months later to account for the complaint made against you, you may well have forgotten the facts of the occurrence, and it's very difficult then to recall, what actually happened at that time of complaint.
First, I think that's a very, very important and strong point that you make in terms of memory, documentation, and recall of incidents that may have happened some time ago. There are some other members still wishing to speak. Forgive me if I'm not quite the right, because it's a forest of hands, but can I take Frank next? And then David wants to come back and Bill.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to be alone here until Councillor Chris spoke, because I would not want to know if there was a complaint against me until the investigation had been completed, and then I had time to answer. It's the stress of a member being accused of something, and if he's innocent or she is innocent, it goes on and on. And I would use Sargent, the member of the Senate, as an example of this. He was accused. He was not given a chance to give evidence, and the stress, he committed suicide. You know, people have got feelings, and if they get accused and they're innocent, there's nothing they can do if it's in the hands of the ombudsman. I say let the ombudsman do his job, and if there's a case to be answered, then bring the councillor or whoever has been accused in. No, just keep it the way it is. And thank you, Chris, because I thought I was going to be alone here.
Okay, thank you. Please. So, David, do you want to come back? Microphone, please, David.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just that Councillor Chris was saying there's frivolous complaints, but just what are the numbers? How many in total complaints? Have we got any figures? How many complaints are actually being made, including the ones that are not followed up? Is there any have we have any figures on that?
I don't have the Ombudsman's annual report before me, but it is a lot. We took the annual report. Do we have access to the last annual report? It is quite a significant number that the office deals with at that initial gatekeeper stage. So the vast majority, I can say, the vast majority, in fact, are filtered out at that stage. We'll see during the rest of this course of this debate whether we can find the numbers, but it is quite a lot.
Thank you. So, Jill, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to double check, because I've heard from a couple of people this afternoon saying that one of the benefits of notifying the person who's been accused at the outset is so that they can be interviewed, the memory recall, start talking to people and so on. And I just really wanted to check with Matt, because my understanding of the reading of the paper is that it's not the intention that the Ombudsman will be changing their approach in terms of interviewing people as part of that gatekeeping stage. It's purely just to notify the accused in the interest of natural justice. But have I perhaps misunderstood, Matt, the paper?
Chair, I don't think that is misunderstood. Within the report itself, one of the perceived problems with the previous practice was this starting to collate evidence and all those kind of things, and all the discussions that led to when essentially it was a gatekeeper stage. So when a complainant makes a complaint, they are expected to substantiate that complaint with evidence. If there isn't any evidence, very quickly gets dismissed on the basis, and members of the committee will know from reports that have been taken in the past, cases that are dismissed where essentially no evidence has been provided to substantiate the complaint. There is an expectation that will be either witness evidence or documentary evidence to substantiate the complaint, and if there isn't any of that, then it will be dismissed. So in terms of understanding what the intentions are of the Ombudsman, well, the intentions at this stage just to consult on the proposal, and then what they will then do in terms of looking at that and their considerations, it will be for the ombudsman essentially.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any further points people wish to make, Brenda?
Having heard the debate, I feel that the views of those members who have actually been in this position should be given weight. I'm conscious that as an independent, I'm on the outside. I can give comments, which I have done, but hearing from people who've actually been in this position, I feel those comments should be given weight. I don't think you're going to get a clear answer, in other words.
Thank you. I mean, we've heard from both sides of the debate from councillors who either favour or disfavour the proposed change. But I think the input from members, particularly who are not members of the Standards Committee, has been interesting and valuable, without doubt. The point is, of course, we are responding here as a Standards Committee, not as individual councillors or as another or a different committee of the authority. So we're here to discuss this from the Standards Committee point of view, not as an elected member. So I think we need to just bear that in mind when we come to a consensus. What the question for us is, what as a Standards Committee do we think is the right answer? Not as a sitting member or as an elected member is the right answer, because those can be different things. And we're the Standards Committee because we're offering an independent perspective. That's exactly why we're here. So I think that's hopefully a fair assessment of our mission here. I'm the chair, and I'll absolutely abide by what the consensus is here, whether we can achieve one or not. That's my responsibility. Unless someone has got a strong objection, I will give you a perspective for myself as an independent member of the Standards Committee. I've been subject to one complaint policy or another for 50 years, just about. At times it's been, as we've heard from others, quite worrying, even traumatic for me and people around me. I've also administered complaints, policies, procedures, and investigations for many years during that time. And it's an important and complex area. In terms of the right of the accused to know, I don't think I've been involved in an organisation which doesn't routinely, but informing the person complained about as a principal pillar of its policy. That is the right to know if somebody's made a complaint against you. I think that is, people have said, an issue of natural justice, an issue of fairness, and I think it was, as was appropriately put, gives the opportunity at any stage for an individual to gather the thoughts, documentation, papers, and any potential support, be it witnesses or anything else, in preparation. Whatever happens to the allegation in due course, if it's dismissed 12 months down the line or it's acted upon, a lot might be lost during that period, and that can't be right. But completely take the point about the stress this can cause. I know, absolutely know it can, and sometimes that might be avoidable, but at a cost, and that cost is transparency. I think the other issue that's been probably at the heart of some of the Ombudsman's indecision around this, not indecision, that's unfair, I suppose, two-mindedness or uncertainty, it is that there have been examples where individuals have been made aware of a complaint and then have meddled and have behaved inappropriately, tried to intervene and been disruptive, impeding the ability of investigators within the Ombudsman's office and with the local authority concerned to get on with the job of sorting it out. And that's unfortunate and very unhelpful. And I suppose the prospect of that returning is something that they would not wish to prosper. So those are the points. You probably know where I sit on this, and I'm no wish to influence at all. I just feel that's appropriate as a member of the committee that I make those points. It is based on some experience and painful experience at times, but there we are. So thank you for all your contributions. It's been a really helpful and constructive and well-phrased debate, and I thank you for that. I think Mark wants to just put some points forward as well.
Yeah, just a quick comment on what you've just said, Chair. I suppose it's not indecision by the Ombudsman's office, as you correct yourself. It is a change from the initial practice due to the things that we've discussed and the problems that arose from that initial practice, which members have discussed and have been identified and contained in the report. It's then a recommendation, isn't it, that is reconsidered, and this consultation is essentially part of the information gathering to allow the Ombudsman to properly reconsider whether or not he wants to revise its current practice and go back to the original practice. Just in terms of data, Councillor David asked about data in terms of the amount of complaints. So we did take the annual report. It was the last meeting or the one before the last meeting, I think, for 23-24. During that financial year, the Ombudsman assessed 311 complaints. There were 518 received, 311 were assessed during that year, of which 48 were investigated. So in other words, 48 of those 311 passed this initial gatekeeper stage. So that's the hard data, Chair.
Helpful, thank you. So, colleagues, and I am talking to the Standards Committee now. In your hands, as I said, do we feel we can offer any consensus response, or do we want to something a bit more nuanced, or have we nothing to say as a group? I'm in your hands, really. Councillor Louise?
I suppose it's clear we can't give a consensus unless we go to a vote, go with a majority, which doesn't feel quite right. But I think you've picked up the definite two sides to each of this, of from wanting to know, but then having the worry of that when it could just be absolutely minor. But I do agree with what Bromley said, particularly in the world of social media. Say you've had WhatsApp conversations that are based on the allegation, and a lot of people have disappearing messages, which would then go into the ether. And suddenly, if I'd known, I could have saved them or something. So that really, Bromley's point really made me think that the accuser, the person needs to know as soon as possible. But that's just me. So, but I think you've picked up enough. Can you just give this is a bit wishy-washy to say this is what we said? Do they want? You can just
not at all. We can put a narrative response in. Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it is fair to.
Raised.
I think it is fair to say that, and I'll try and do that now. So if that's again, but thank you for that contribution. I can try and achieve a consensus here, or even a vote if that's what the wish of the membership. But if we can do it another way. Jill?
Thanks. I'm just wondering if it's worth just checking with Standards Committee members. Now everyone's heard the debate as well as us all contributing to it, to see whether or not there is a consensus. And if there isn't, then we could do, as Councillor Louise has said, do a narrative.
I'm happy to do that. So this is a sort of indication short of a vote then, before. Okay, if that works, then let's do that. So do you want to start then, Jill?
Thank you, Chair. I'm in support of the recommendation to notify the accused person straight away, notwithstanding all the issues that we've discussed.
Thank you. Let's take David now online, if we may. David, can you hear? Are you with us?
I just had problems getting the microphone on. So,
All right,
yeah, sorry,
okay.
sorry about that, Chair. Yeah, I'm minded to say that we could possibly say that the majority on this standards committee support the recommendations. You know,
Yeah.
obviously, and so we haven't got a consensus of everybody. But we could
Right,
actually
and-
say majority on the committee support the recommendations. Yeah.
And your own view, if you don't mind.
Well, I support the recommendations. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Maggie?
Yes, I support the recommendations.
Thank you very much. Frank? Sorry, Miss Brenda out, sorry. I'm not, I was going along the line, but then I came to that, but I'm going, you know, I don't any sort of left to right.
You want to
thing,
hear from Maggie twice.
Yeah.
I'm the same. I support the recommendation.
Thank you, Brenda. Frank,
Thank you, Chair. I'm against it on the evidence that's been produced by
thank you
Mark.
very much. Frank. Thank you.
Sorry, just so that I'm clear, did you say, Jill, that you were supporting the recommendations in your summary? And I,
Correct, and those recommendations being that the person accused should be notified at the outset.
thank you, that clarifies it for me, and I support that.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Right, so I think what we can say then is there is a clear majority amongst the membership of the Standards Committee that notification should be made of the complaint. I think we need to record the fact that that wasn't unanimous. I think the important points that you know that have been picked up that we might usefully relay back is the issue around natural justice, which and the right to know, the issues of transparency, that any system which ultimately is under public scrutiny ought to be transparent to all concerned. And I think the point that the notification gives the ability for an individual to reflect and to assemble what information might be useful in due course in defending their position or otherwise. I think the principal argument against changing the system relates to unnecessary anxiety and stress that might be induced by a complaint which clearly ultimately turns out to be of no substance whatsoever, and that's unnecessary angst in a situation that could be avoided. So I think, you know, those are the points, unless I've misrepresented them or misheard them. I suspect they'll be replicated elsewhere in the argument. But you know, I say again that our responsibility here is to respond as a standards committee, which includes elected members, but not on behalf of elected members. And that's our position, and that the consensus was significant. Would that be a fair summary?
I have to say, Chair, that it seems to me that the consensus of the committee is that the response is that you should revert to the previous practice. And whilst we have had a councillor who doesn't agree with the committee as a whole on that issue, and whilst all members of the committee, you know, understand and accept that there are both sides to the argument, somebody might want to put forward that that the committee's view is that they should revert to the old practice, but that all the reasons are contained within the consultation response. Which, if you're content for me to summarise those reasons in a response that I put forward on the committee's behalf, I will be content to do so.
I mean, you're right. They say there is it's not a consensus. There is a consensus, but it's not it's not a unanimous situation. And I wouldn't want to at all detract from the very real and heartfelt arguments that are being put forward. I think that would be unfair. But you know, I think the general position, as you say, is significant. If it could be articulated in that way, that would probably find favour. I'm happy to go to a vote if that helps in a reflection of the position that we find ourselves in, but I'm not sure that is necessary in the current circumstances, or is what is expected. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it's clear what the committee's views are, and I'm content to put those forward on behalf of the committee in response to the consultation. If the member's happy to move and second that and vote on that, then I can do that.
Okay. Does that sound? If it isn't, please let me know. This is an important issue. But can I have a proposal in that case, as Matt's outlined, that he articulates? You, Jill, seconder, please, Maggie. All in favour? That is unanimous. So that's a satisfactory outcome from my point of view. A really good debate, thank you. The issues are certainly not lost to me, as I've explained. I bear the scars of the different systems, and it does hurt, especially the injustice. On the other hand, sometimes we all do things that we'd rather haven't. Good. Let's move on then. Item 6C is the Ombudsman's findings, page 70 to 25 in your pack. And this is a summary of recent cases which Kerry is going to take us through.
Thank you, Chair. This just deals with an update from the last report that I presented in June 2024. There have just been 9 cases reported since the report in June 2024. So this represents a decrease on the previous number of cases because there was the same reported in the previous period, being a shorter period of time. So in summary, there were 7 cases involving alleged breaches by town and community councillors, and 2 of those related to county councillors. In terms of the disposal of the cases, 2 of them resulted in no action being deemed necessary. One was discontinued as not in the public interest, and there were 2 cases where the Ombudsman found the suggested breaches but felt it was not in the public interest to proceed further with the referral. There were 2 cases where it was found there was no evidence to support the alleged breaches, and the final 2 cases concerned possible breaches of equality and respect, and both of those resulted in referrals. One went to the Standards Committee and the other one went to the Adjudication Panel for Wales. And those will be reported, the outcome of those, in future case books. Public interest has featured in a third of the reports as a reason for matters not being taken further by the Ombudsman. Some of the themes coming out of the cases, which obviously are repeated in full for you to have a look at your leisure. So the importance of training for members on the more complex aspects of the code is highlighted, and the role of the monitoring officer in trying to avoid disputes escalating is also recognised. In one of the cases, you'll see there is reference to the local resolution procedure and whether that is appropriate when there are alleged breaches of the code of conduct, and the Ombudsman says that that is not appropriate for that to be the case. So those really are, in summary, findings. The majority of the alleged breaches were failure to show equality and respect, which is in line with the annual report that you looked at on the last occasion. The 2 failure to declare interest cases resulted in no action deemed to be necessary by the Ombudsman, and the details are set out in the cases for you to have a look at. There were 3 cases of alleged breach of integrity and 4 allegations of failure to show equality and respect altogether. 2 of those only went forward and as a referral. 2 of them, there was no further action. So the vast majority were involving town and community councils, and similar to the annual report, there is a preponderance of cases regarding equality and respect. So unless you've got any questions on those report, that concludes my feedback.
Thank you, Kerry, for that summary. Any points at all? Councillor Gronwies.
Question on process more than anything else, just for information. Who actually decides whichever way the honour's decision goes, whether it's for the plaintiff or the accused? Is there an appeals process and against the ombudsman's decision, and who is the ombudsman actually accountable to?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So the process, the ombudsman is the investigator, but not the adjudicator. So the adjudicators are either the local standards committee that's responsible for the area in terms of the accused member, or the adjudication panel for Wales. So what the ombudsman is the investigator. If they do consider that it's a breach and they do consider that further action is necessary, essentially there will either be a referral to the monitoring officer so that they can have a hearing of the standards committee to take a view and to impose any sanctions if they think appropriate, or it will go to the adjudication panel for Wales to do the same thing. At the end of that process, you'll either have a decision on it from the standards committee or the APW, and at that point there is a statutory right of appeal to that process. So if the decision was that there'd been breached the code by a standards committee, the appeal would lie with the adjudication panel for Wales. If the decision that there was a breach of the code was made by the adjudication panel for Wales, then the appeal would be in the High Court. And as I say, that is a statutory right to appeal. So that's the process in terms of appeals, Chair.
Thank you. And in terms of the Ombudsman's position, the Ombudsman reports to the Finance Committee of the Senate. That's the reporting line. Thank you. Any other points? Thank you. In that case, we need to note this report formally, please, a proposer. May, Louise, seconded Frank. All in favour? Against? Thank you very much. Thank you, Kerry. The next item, item 7, I guess is in my hands since I instigated the paper. And I thought it was important that members be acquainted with an inquiry which has taken place during last year by the Local Government and Housing Committee of the Welsh Government into the role, governance and accountability of the community and town council sector across Wales. Now, this is core business for us, of course, as Standards Committee. And we visit Standards Committees, we observe their work and we comment upon it. And we're one of the few bodies, actually, across the country and within the tiers of government that actually has this sort of responsibility. So this whole swathe of local government, it's an interesting and challenging area, but it's one where which we have a pivotal role. So this took place, as I say, during last year, and the National Standards Forum, which comprises 22 local authorities, fire and rescue services and the national parks, were invited to respond. That's the chairs of those bodies, and I chair the forum, hence my particular interest, I guess. But you'll know that this is an interest which has found its way into these meetings over the past couple of years, and I'm not alone in making observations around the work of TNCCs and how things might be improved and strengthened in time. So the meeting took place, oral evidence on the 14th of November. Prior to that, background papers were submitted from different bodies. In the case of the National Standards Forum, the submission was under the auspices of the WLGA, the Welsh Local Government Association, who offers the administrative support for the forum. And so on the 14th of November, the participants invited to give oral evidence were myself, Councillor Anthony Hunt, leader of Torvine, and Justine Cass, who was then monitoring officer of Torvine, is now moved to the Vale of Glamorgan. And our observations hopefully represented, I suppose, the voice of chairs across Wales, which had been put forward over the past couple of years. This being a regular agenda item for the meetings which take place. Other bodies were invited to participate, including Audit Wales, One Voice Wales, which is the umbrella body for town and community councils themselves, and other stakeholders. And for what it's worth, the sessions were held in a hybrid situation, and the committee comprised, as you'd expect, a cross-party membership with some professional advisors. I suppose the main imperative here was to put some substance around the observation that lots of people are making, that in some cases town and community councils are not working optimally. As I think I outlined at the last meeting, even before I knew this was going to take place, in terms of our own county, there are some superb examples of town and TNCCs who are working diligently, great admin support, everything you want to see in local democracy and improving the lives of local people there. There's some that are not working like that at all, and which are not well served and not serving the community as well. And then there's, as you'd expect, a bunch in the middle who doing a sort of better or worse job depending on circumstances. And of course, they vary in size from the big ones right in here, from Llandudno, Colwyn Bay, right down to some very, very small community councils in the Hiraetho, comprising perhaps 200 or 300 people. So these are very varied bodies indeed. The evidence was given, and I guess there were no surprises that these observations were made. I think from the point of view of the National Standards Forum, it was a good chance to benchmark our concerns against those of others, and there's lots of correlation, as you probably expect. And so where this will go, I don't know, but I think it's important we recognise that the situation is live, it's under scrutiny, and that we have an important part to play in feeding back on individual situations so that an aggregate picture of what's happening can take place. Under the Local Government Act, Wales 2013, there are mechanisms by which reviews of community councils can be undertaken. And these can be either instigated by local councils themselves, by Welsh Government, or by the principal authority, in this case the county, under either section 25 or 31 of the Local Government Act. So there's always the opportunity to do this. I don't think it's been done in Conwy for some years, but that opportunity exists. And these can usually involve rationalisation of town and county councils, maybe mergers, and things like that, in the interest of the overall governance in the area. So I was pleased to see that this is now a live debate, that the right people are participating, I think, across Wales. There is no agenda here at all to disparage or undermine the work of town and community councils. As I say, in some cases, it's just simply superb and awe-inspiring. But there are, as always in these things, there's margin room for improvement, and I think that's what the mission is. So just to continue with this, and I would like to think that Conwy, as we have done, will be diligent in continuing to make our visits, to make our observations, and to try and improve the situation locally and therefore nationally. So that was my mission in the paper. Happy to take any questions or observations, and then the recommendation is that simply note what I've had to say. So Yeah, over to you. Thank you. Louise.
Yeah, I was really interested in this report, and obviously the spotlight is coming to town councils and community councils with a number One Voice Wales we're members of at Llandudno Town Council. Do I need to declare that interest? No. Fine. So we know what's coming in sort of a restructure and review, and that's happening over in England as well with the larger councils. But it's interesting, the first two lines that I picked up on was, are they fit for purpose? And are they fit to cope with the new responsibilities? Because what I'm finding in the town council for over 7 years now is because of the changing financial issues that we have at county level, is that we're looking at managing things like toilets and playgrounds and parks and gardens away from the county. So not just giving them money, but looking at potential asset transfer. So all of a sudden you have town clerks and deputy town clerks whose sort of main function for us anyways around events and, dare I say, lovely civic and slightly fluffy things, to managing really important infrastructure that a town really relies on. And I don't think, not necessarily the staff, but I think the staff need retraining and redirecting, but certainly the town councillors with our town council's hat on are being asked to do things and manage things way beyond what we thought when we got elected as town councillors. And we are all volunteers, and those of us, most of us have other roles that pay, and particularly myself, I've taken on a few chairs of committees at town council. And if in some weeks I find myself the hours that I put into town council because I have to fulfill those roles successfully, that just doesn't work if I'm not getting paid for all those hours at this stage in my life. And I've got lots of bills and young children. So I am really concerned about the sector, that as we move to, which I believe that we should be looking after things that the county can't because they have that responsibility of social care and education and housing, is that we're definitely not equipped. So we have town councillors who are happy to come and help out at the fireworks display or be on a Christmas parade committee. But if you talk to them about asset transfer and a new coastal strip of combining councils working together, SLAs, they'll go, whoa, this isn't what I've signed up for. So that's my first point that concerns me, and that we're not being paid. So I can't keep doing the hours I'm doing and not get paid for them. That doesn't work in my life. And secondly is, been on the standards committee for 2.5 years. The amount of disagreements, petty disagreements, which we see, and the lack of professionalism is at town and community level. So why is that? I hate to say the calibre of candidates, because that's an awful thing to say. I'm a town council and I go to some really good town council, but why is it that we have these really petty disagreements and spats at ombudsman level that we don't see as much at county level? I don't know the answer to that question. That's my observations.
Thank you. Any other points? Brenda, please.
Very interesting points. I'm coming from a completely different place. I'm just conscious that during the time I've been on the Standards Committee, we have independent members visited a section of town and community council across across Conwy Borough. And I'm thinking that in light of this, it might be a good idea to draw that information together. It's only a snapshot. At this rate, it's going to take about 100 years to visit all town and community councils. But nonetheless, I'm recognizing the themes in here, and I'm wondering whether it'd be helpful to have evidence, data actually drawn together to support that.
Thank you, Brenda. I'll come back to that perhaps in the next item. Councillor Gromley.
Thank you again for allowing me to speak. But the point that Louise made, I think, is a very good point on the changing roles of town and community councillors. I'm both a community councillor, a town councillor, and a county councillor, and the expectations on town councils and community councils are getting heavier. And the message from government is they want more young people to get involved. They want more diversity in local government. But everything they're doing is making it harder for young people and people of different backgrounds to actually become councillors, because unless you have another income, it's very difficult for anybody to play an active role in local government, other than at county level, and make a living. So it is a challenging time. The Assembly now looking to increase their numbers. They're changing the voting system in Wales. Anybody wanting to stand as an independent councillor will find it extremely difficult in the new way of voting going forward. That is currently Assembly election system. That'll come down to the county council and probably inevitably come down to town and community council. So it is a very good time to have the debate. But I think whilst they say they want to devolve power out to the masses, everything they are doing seems to be contrary to that.
Thank you. And there's no doubt that the membership of a lot of the councils are stale, bluntly. Lots of members that have been co-opted and been there for years without any challenge or openness or scrutiny, particularly in the smaller ones. Any other points? Frank, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I welcome the change. I welcome the change. We've had these changes before. We've changed counties, we've changed authorities, and I welcome the change. It needs revamped. It needs revamped, I take what Louise said. But to me, there can be too much representation in the wards, and it needs to be more streamlined to be more effective. And I also agree with Louise that money should come into this. If you're asking a person to work as the county is, they should get paid. I don't advocate this because I think you get more reward out of volunteers than getting paid. But I think the whole system of local government needs changed, and I'm glad and I welcome it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Frank. So John next, and then David, please.
I agree with, oh, it's on now. Perhaps it's voice activated. Yeah, I agree with much of what Councillor Louise and Councillor Frank have said. Some of the answers that questions that Councillor Louise asked, I don't really know the answer to them myself, really. From my experience on Conway Town Council, which I think a lot of people know has had a fairly turbulent past, I can say that over the last 2, 3, 4 years, everything has been on a much calmer level within the council now. It's difficult for town council level, I think, to suddenly be expected to take on assets of one type or another, because that's not, historically what town and community councils have largely been set up to do. And I think what I sense is happening, of course, because of budgetary difficulties for principal councils, one of the solutions that they see is transfer those assets over to town and community councils. You don't get any money for it, or there's none that's apparent, but you can actually raise the precept, or should raise the precept, to cover those costs. The net effect of that is zero as far as the taxpayer is concerned, because there's a limitation on the county council rate is suppressed, but then the town council precept goes up on the other hand. Personally, I do think that town and community councils could deliver more in the right circumstances. And another purely personal viewpoint on it is that there is an awful lot of town and community councils across Wales, and that means the one thing that none of them have is economies of scale or efficiencies for a larger scale operation. So if you think within a 5-mile radius that you've got Llandudno Town Council, you've got Conway Town Council, you've got Colwyn Bay Town Council, all with full structures of their own, and you would like to think that with some sort of imagination, looking at it, restructuring in some way, that there would be economies that could be delivered there, which would then free up resources for the key task, which is delivering customer and resident benefits. Customer benefits, talking too much like the corporate man now.
Thank you. God forbid. You want to comment on that particular point, Mark?
Yeah, I know that there are some broad surrounding issues to the report that's been brought, but essentially it's been brought because as chair of the standards committee, our chair was invited to give evidence on the issue. But I suppose it's just a reminder, chair, that the standards committee is here to deal with issues of conduct, member conduct. That's what the remit of the committee is for. So including the visits to town and community councils, those issues, and the documents that we take, the checks that we give and the reports that we give back to the standards committee is about that. It's about the standards of the members of those committees and how the behaviours are, whether declarations of interest are made in the correct way, and those kind of issues. So it's just a reminder, chair,
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that reminder, Matt. Thank you. David?
Yeah, thank you. My thoughts are that, particularly the community councils, and I'm a Bay of Colwyn Town councillor, community councils, they're not paid. They're doing it, as a matter of public service. And as the town and community councils have visited, the reports we've seen on this committee is that things do go fairly well on these town and community councils because it's local people wanting to work together to make their community better. I think when political parties get involved, and I don't know the ins and outs of what went on in Conway Town Council, but I think that might have been the problem. So really, I think as a community councillor, a local town councillor, I see my role very differently as a county councillor. I see it more as in the community and representing the community rather than as a political role. And I know it's been mentioned about services from the county council being passed on to town councils. I'm not so much in favour of that, really. I think we need to deal with the local issues, really, the basic, the bread and butter issues, and try and keep politics out of it. And it's about working together. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, so unless there are any more points, thanks for your interest in the report. We do need to keep it in bounds of where our responsibility is. But I say again, there aren't too many other bodies other than the standards committees looking at town and community councils at all. And I think that is something that probably needs some reflection. And I say again, there's always the opportunity for community reviews to be instigated on 3 different levels, if indeed the situation so deserves. But it looks like there is some work happening now which might leverage some of the opportunities that members have outlined in terms of rationalisation and maybe a more grounded approach. So I think from my point of view, I'll before we note the report, is to say our next item is about visits, and that during 2025, my suggestion to members, I hope with support of everybody, is that we renew our efforts to visit as many councils as we can, and then we can begin to aggregate things in the way that Brenda has suggested to pick up themes that are emerging, and in that way we are fulfilling our responsibility, because a lot of the issues, the problems, do spill over into conduct issues, and that's where we find ourselves having a proper role in identifying shortcomings. Thank you very much indeed. Again, another good and useful discussion. A vote, please, and a proposal that we note the report. Frank? Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Seconder, please. Anybody? Brenda? All in favour? Thanks very much indeed. Which does take us to item 8, which is the independent member feedback from meetings. I'm not aware that we've been to any since the last. Brenda, did you go? Yeah, sorry, Brenda. There we are.
I went to Lisfine on the 14th of
Of
October.
course,
It feels like a while
it
ago.
does.
I'll try and keep my comments in line with Matt's caveat. It was an interesting visit. Before I arrived there, I thought it was going to be a real problem because I just couldn't get any information. The website was hopelessly out of date, incomplete, lacking contact detail. But when I arrived, it was completely the opposite. There was 100% attendance. That's amazing as far as I'm concerned. And the members there were engaged, informed, and they really were caring about their community. So a case in point, perhaps. The problems on the website were because they were in the midst of having a new one. So they taken everything down and it hadn't quite got the new one. Whether if I went now, it'd be different. I don't know. I haven't tested. But so on the specifics, there were a few points. One point was that there was no reference on the agenda to public attendance. The meeting was set up for hybrid, but I had enough problems finding out when the meeting was and what the agenda was. And I think it would have been really difficult for an outside member of the public. So that's one point that hopefully will be improved looking forward. Similarly, although there was provision on the agenda for declarations of personal interest, there was not reference to prejudicial interest. And it was clear when I explored that they were a bit hazy about the differences between personal and prejudicial. So the one declaration that was made was correctly made, it was correctly acted, but to be on the safe side, they said personal and prejudicial. I took the occasion because it happened to be the 14th of October. I'd just been trained myself earlier in the day, so I took the occasion to try and clarify personal and prejudicial while I was there. I enjoyed the meeting. I was made to feel welcome. There were good discussions, good participation, and I left, contrary to what I expected, feeling that a good job was being done.
Oh, thanks very much, Brenda. And I think it's probably not an uncommon experience amongst some of us that engaging with them is difficult in the first instance. And the websites are often outdated and the communication is limited. If I may, I think the point you make about if it's difficult for us to find and access a meeting, and I've had another conversation today along the similar lines, what chance is a member of the public from accessing this meeting? And that's, I mean, that could not be more critical, that point, could it? These are supposed to be public meetings in the interest of the local community. And often they become like a closed shop. So the other point I'd make gently without overstating it is that dare I suggest your presence will have had hopefully an impact on the membership to realise that there are individuals and a body with some responsibility to assure that the job is being done. So attendance in itself, I think, brings benefits.
It's true that they said they'd never met any other representative from the Standards Committee, so I felt I was breaking new ground. On the other hand, they had strong links with their Conwy Borough representative, so they will have been getting information that way.
Thank you. Good. Well, thanks again, Brendan, for that attendance. As you know, occasionally suggest lists of councils that we might attend, and I do this on a basis simply by looking around at websites and so on, and looking where it might be interesting. And also, of course, it's our responsibility to see everybody over a period to make sure there's some loose sort of rota. So that's how we do it. But I do look forward to doing more visits during the course of the year. Sorry, Councillor Jeff at the back, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not a member of this committee, but I'm sitting in. I must say, actually, the lady in question was present when I was present at the meeting, and in part stole my thunder, introduced certain facts regarding good governance, when I was about to do so. I've got to say, in fact, that I was chair of Glitchfind for some time, and I stepped away on the basis that I wanted the actual community to take over the chair and to learn how to govern and learn how to handle a community council. There's a danger sometimes when people are there for a very long time that people allow it to run. The chair changes every year. The clerk is part-time. The meetings are 2 hours in principle once a month. That's not a lot of time to discuss what is community requirements and good governance and auditing as well. When you put in financial accounts as well, that changes. There's a standard set here which is acceptable. It's very high. For community councils to meet that standard, it's very difficult. The very presence, in fact, of your member being there was a benefit I felt to the community council. They felt there was notice taken of them. 2, in fact, they felt that there was an importance about trying to get things in place, and they take that on board. And I think there is a case to say, in fact, that going forward, that this committee, by this body, could support community councils more by that very fact, not to monitor or to criticise, but there to show, in fact, support and good guidance. And I would certainly welcome that through. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you so much for those supportive observations, both on the specific and the general role. And I'm very pleased to receive those. Thanks very much indeed. In terms of visits, as I say, we're here to note the fact, and in particular Brenda's report. I think that is the mission now. But behind that, we'll be looking to redouble our efforts during 2025. So let's get on the road. So a proposal, please, that this item be noted. Wayne seconded. Maggie, in favour, please. Everybody, thank you so much. Item 9 is the members' register of interests, 82 to 84 in your pack. Brief information with a few amendments mainly. I don't think there's anything particular to mention on those. So in that case, proposal, please. Note that. Thank you. Frank seconded. Jill, in favour, please. Everybody happy? Thank you. And then item 10 is gifts of hospitality. It's just one. So again, a proposal, please. Noted. Frank seconded. Brenda. Everybody happy? Thank you. Excellent. So I think that concludes our meeting today, Sally, unless I've forgotten anything. So once again, I thank you for your attendance. For those members not of the committee, particularly, I found your contributions extremely interesting and valuable today. And again, I thank you for interest in our work, as to anybody else that's tuning in now or might do so subsequently. And some very good discussions on a couple of substantial items. Thanks to the team as always for supporting the meeting and keeping us on track. And I look forward to seeing you all again 24th of March.